Now, you have been hired to perform a vulnerability analysis of your client's latest product, which they were about to launch, but due to a recent incident, they have gone down for maintenance. Now, we have been assigned with their IP address of the target system to identify and look at the methodologies which the attacker might have used for compromising their entire product. We have got the IP address, and let's dive into this. I've already run this and spawned this target system. Let's open our terminal, go to the directory where we usually run our TryHackMe contents, and welcome to the new challenge of TryHackMe called as Contrabando, or a new room of TryHackMe. This name, for my convenience, let's call it as Contrabando itself. I don't know how to pronounce it. Okay, so let's start with a sudo nmap scan, which basically I want to understand what are the ports and services that are being running on our target system to identify how can we go further. Let's start with a synchronization scan and also with some script scan, which would give us more output by trying to scan it and look for some vulnerabilities which is present in those services. Also, we want the output to be really fast, so -T5, and give us an verbose output of it. Paste in the IP address of the target system and press enter here. This should be quite fast, and straight away we can see two ports to be identified, which is port 22 and port 80. Port 22 usually used for SSH, so I don't think so. We would really love to go to that side of the exploitation right now, which is going to lead us to port 80, which is the HTTP service. Now, it says from the script scan, it says HTTP title site doesn't have a title, text or HTML, and method. It gives us an interesting thing. It says supported methods are get, post, options, head, and trace. So trace is basically a method used in HTTP which gives us then output or echoes the server's conditions whenever we try to pass in some contents to it. I guess that's the right explanation. What we can do is Google them. Let's open up a new window and search trace or trace method, and Google's AI is going to explain to us. The trace method refers to two main concepts depending on the context: a HTTP debugging technique in software engineering and specific HTTP request method. We want to go to this. The trace method is one of the standard HTTP request method defined for diagnostic purpose. Yes, that's a common thing which we identify during any penetration testing or a vulnerability assessment, is that the developers leave their debugging tools or debugging services enabled for them, which they have been using during the process of development, and maybe mostly forget to turn them off. So we will be looking about that in a while, but we know that it also uses a trace method. Now, before we actually speculate things, let's actually get into it and try to access this web application. So I'll copy the IP address of it and edit my etc host file such that we can use a domain name to this IP address. So I'll replace my existing IP address information from my previous solve to the new IP address that we got for this machine. X, Y, and enter to save this. Then come to this new window, HTTP contrabando.thm. THM, not L. Yes. And here we get. So we get a static page here. It says coming soon. Check out our beta page. Clicking on this is trying to redirect us into the page home.html file. But other than that, we don't see anything suspicious or usable thing to work with. So let's open the source code of this page to analyze further. And all that we see is some styling that is happening here and the contents of the page that we exactly saw. Okay, so let's now go to the HTML page that is trying to redirect us into. And we come to this page called as our password generator is currently down. I'm so sorry. So there is nothing else that we can do further in this page other than to look at the source code. Again, the same thing, the styling is present here and the contents what we just saw are also present here. That means we are now supposed to be doing some fuzzing to look at what files and folders that is present in this application. For that, I use Puff, one of my favorite tools for fuzzing into web application stuff. So I'll choose a word list of sec list, fuzzing list, sec list, discovery, web contents, raft, medium files.txt. Now again, in my case, the raft medium files.txt is little bit appended with furthermore word list because that has come throughout my experience and other source list. So there is a little bit modification in this raft medium files, or else you can use, there are a ton of different word lists which can be used, such as all these things that is present in web contents. So one of them would give you very fruitful results, but in my case, since raft medium just did the job, I'm going to be choosing that itself for files.txt and passing in the post is this one. So I'll copy, paste it in here. For now, let's remove this page and home.html and replace it with fuzz to see if there are any other files present. So pressing enter, that should start fuzzing for this list. At the same time, I'll copy this URL and open another terminal down here, paste in that and replace here with adding a folder called page. That's where we found our home.html page. So we know a constant directory is present called as page. Let's try to fuzz there too. Pressing enter, that starts to give us a huge number of lists which saying that yes, they are also present. Now this is suspicious because we would not find such things just by having it on the word list. So let's try to copy one of these files, copy them and come to this page, replace home.html with, let's say, discount.php and try pressing enter. When we do this, we get a warning saying that read file discount.php failed to open stream. No such file or directory in var www html index.php on line 5. What is this? Meaning, this is trying to read the discount.php file, which is supposedly trying to be run by index.php file on line number 5. So it's trying to open this discount.php file under the HTML directory. What if I try to do this? Can I go to etc pass wd? Can I try to read that? It said not found. Okay, that makes sense. So but we get an idea that there is something called as an index.php file which is trying to read the file and specifically trying to read the contents inside that file. That's why it said failed to open the streams, which means that this file doesn't exist and hence no streams have come out of it. That's interesting, but let's look at what are the other files or contents that is exactly present. So I will put out a filter saying that anything which is of the size, let's say size 19 to be not shown on our screen. So FW and I'll call it 19, press enter. That's going to start scanning and straight away we see index.php, which was also pointed to us right here. Let's open this page and look at what contents does this share or hold. And it's a blank screen. Wow. Opening the source code, we see it says page is equal to get page. And if there is any value set in the page, it's going to read that page. Else it's going to redirect to the index.php page is equal to home.html. Okay, so interesting. So what if I try to put something else here? It is just trying to put it here, right? So I don't know. We could try with something like page equals to etc pass wd. I know that would fail and no contents here. That is okay. So it's trying to basically redirect into that folder if there is a page parameter found there. Okay, that's one thing. What about the other things? We see gen.php file to also be present in this folder. So let's try to replace the contents from index.php to gen.php. Again, we get a blank page. No wonder why. And this is a different function here. It says function generate random password, and it's taking in the parameter called as length, and password is equal to executing tar dc. It's basically a system function, and it's taking up a string from A to Z, both capital and smaller letters, and from 0 to 9, which is the numeric digits. And that's been done from the unrandom file, and things are being put there. So it's going to take with that length. Okay, so then it's going to return for the password. If post, which means from the post method, it's basically looking at what contents are or what is the length which is being passed. So it's taking from the length. So it's trying to take the post method. Length is equal to post, taking the word and generate random password of this length, which is going to this function here, then echoing a random password. So else, if it doesn't find any contents there for the post method, it's going to say echo, please insert the length parameter in the URL, which means that it's trying to take in some value from the URL into the application, and it's going to generate us some random password. And this is also running system commands, which is interesting. So which means that we could make it, if it takes in untrusted parameters, we could make it run system commands and execute probably a reverse shell into it. Okay, that's a good idea that we are trying to get from here. Now let's go back to the page itself, because from my terminal here, I don't see anything useful from both of these outputs. So let's look at the web application itself using burp suite to identify the flow of this. Now this is already passed in. I mean, I have set up a proxy connections and also set Contrabando to be my only scope of files to be looking at or intercepting. So all those things are done. I mean, I hope you have that knowledge of using burp suite by now. Okay, so what we'll do is turn on the intercept and try to refresh this page. We get the request here, pass it to the repeater. And I have a lot of tabs, which is doing something in the repeater, again, from the previous exploits itself. Let's try running this latest one, the 5, and pass in to look at what is the response of it. We see the response to be present here. Also, something which I would normally try to, or it would just be overlooked, is the server's information. Here, if you look at it, it says Apache 2.4.54 and is hosted on a Debian server. But if you look closely into our nmap scan here, it says the Apache did not give the version of Apache. Okay, let's do this. Let's run the nmap scan, and this time we just need for the port. We just need port 80, and I will also specify SV to look at the version of Apache. Then a script scan would also help us run this. Normally, we would, I mean, I don't know how did I forget for the version number, but this can also be looked from another repeater tab for the version that is being used. Let's do that here. So I have copied it, and let's remove this, pass it in here. It says Apache 2.4.55, but when it goes to the page and then gen.php, it's telling it's Apache 2.4.54. Two different services or two different versions of Apache is being run on this target system, which means that the server, the backend, is using Apache 5.4, and this is using 0.55. That's interesting. So can we do some trace here? Look at what are the services that is running in the backend. Let's run trace and pass that there. And it says 405 method not allowed. Method not allowed. The request method trace is not allowed for this URL. Apache 2.4.54. Server at backend port is 8080. Oh, that's interesting. So, but if I try to do the same thing here, instead of get, I say trace and pass it in there, it's going to print out the information all about the target system. It says trace HTTP 1.1. I mean, that means it has a vulnerability there. And this is the host. Host is contrabando.thm. This is the agent of it, and all such information are being presented here. There are two different versions of Apache running, front end and the back end. For this, we can try to do some HTTP smuggling. It's nothing but trying to pass in two parameters of a HTTP get or a post method in such a way that one request is going to be accepted from the front end and we bypass its checking variables or the parameters in which it's going to verify is the entire request completed or not, and then it's going to pass on that information to the backend server. In the backend server, we try to run another HTTP request which would do something that we wanted to. And in this case, if you look at the gen.php file, if I just put it to get instead of trace, we could see that it's trying to take in values from the user from the URL parameter, which means that we can try to do it. Also one more thing which I noticed was that if we try to, let's say, let's do get here, let's do get and go to the page here. Let's try entering the etc pass wd to see if that exactly takes in our input or not. So let's say cyberchef.org. I wanted to look if etc pass wd file can be printed out there. So /etc pass wd, and in here I will say URL encode, do it twice, and encode all special characters. Copy this and paste it in there. Instead of pasting, I just send the request. So paste it here, then click on send. And yes, here we go. So it's reading the etc pass wd file, which means that this system does accept any file that we try to pass in. So we could try to even get a reverse shell by smuggling in our HTTP request through these pages, or let's say even through the gen.php file, because that is a backend server and you have already got to know about all the backend's information that's running on port 8080. For that, we have a special payload that is there in my notes for HTTP smuggling. So anyone interested with this, I can share the link down about HTTP smuggling. So what we'll do is we will copy this thing here. Let's copy this. Now, how did I get to know this? We could do that Google search also. Apache 2.4.55 vulnerability. And here we get a list of vulnerabilities. Let's open this burp suit proof of concept, which also talks about a similar thing where we could be doing some HTTP smuggling in it, right? So they've given us an examples of how are they bypassing and sending in the HTTP smuggling request through header injections. So we'll not get into too much of what vulnerabilities and how are they aligned and things like that. Let's close all this. I'll share you just this payload of it. Let's open a text editor here. Let me copy the payload, paste it in here. So what this payload does is it's going to go to the gen.php file, and also the host this time is going to be the backend server at port 8080. Then it's going to do a post method wherein it's going to send in the details to the backend server saying the length of the content that we are passing in is of 130 bytes. And here it's going to say length is equal to 1. Then we are trying to break that because it's going to just take one parameter or one content as the password's length. Then it's going to run another system command, which is going to be our reverse shell payload. It's going to say echo, and we'll put in our payload here. It's going to decode it twice so that if there's any filters there, it's not going to able to figure it out. We are trying to obfuscate it, and then it's going to run through bash. This is being passed to the backend from the server. So for that, let's go to rev shell and generate a payload for us. So replace this IP address to my IP address of the system here, ifconfig, and this is my IP address. So let's copy this, then replace it there. I usually use 12345 itself as my default ports number, and this is by default it's going to be on sh. You can shift it to bin bash, which seems to be the default bash script for our target system. So let's copy this and go to cyberchef, replace this content and do a base 64 encoding. Base 64 to base 64 to Vice. That's good. Now this contains our reverse shell payload to connect back into our system there. Copy this, then replace this base 64 contents into this one. Now copy the entire contents, replace it here, and say URL encoding. Remove this base 64 and bring in URL content here. So this is going to be our payload that we'll be passing in from the repeater. So let's replace this here. Bring in the host down and give some contents there. So pressing, before we actually press enter, let's open up a listener here. Call it nc-lvnp12345, and it's waiting for any request to come in. Pressing enter. Do we get any response? What happened in burp? Bad request. Your browser sent a request, could not understand. Huh. Okay, what if I replace this to this host so that we're sending it to the front end, and the front end is going to send the other part of the payload to the back end of it. So sending this, no, it says your browser sent a request that the server could not understand. Why? Okay, so what I can do is let me copy this payload, replace this one here, and I guess what happened is I forgot to add this one. So yes, and also give an space enter there. Now let's copy this only till up to this point and copy this part of the payload. Yep, then go to our cyberchef pack again, paste this in here and copy this. Now again, if you see here, you can see the new line and the break line values to be present in that, which was not present in our text there. So let's replace that with this. Then the length echo t password, everything just comes in there. That's good. Okay, so if that's done, all that we have to do is send the request. That says bad request once again. Now what's the issue with this? Let's see. It says percentage t to be present there. Okay, let's give that space also some value there. So percentage 20. I hope that's the right thing. Let me check that and send a new request. It still says bad request. Okay, why? Page, there is some issue with our encoding itself. If not, everything looks to be good. That seems to be good. Echo. Is there no space here? That could be the thing. Yes, let's give the plus sign. Now at least still a bad request. Okay. Now we need to stick to this and figure out why. I guess all these spaces are giving it a issue. Let's replace all the space characters with the plus symbols, and I hope this should not matter to it. Any other space characters? No, I don't see anything. So let's pass this in. And yes, and no. No, sorry. Do we get any response back? No, we don't get anything back. Which means that, okay, we were able to pass in the PHP function, but it did not execute the way it should have executed and the way we wanted it. So everything seems to be fine. Length is equal to this dollar base 64. You know what? I'll copy my payload that is there in my notes here. And if I just try to compare this and that, this is the one which is there in my notes. And this is the one which I have entered right now. Both seem to be fairly same, other than that capitalization has happened here. I don't see any issue. This could be strange. Everything seems to be fine. Everything seems to be good. Are there any extra lens here? How many have I copied? Selection as 12. So if I take selection as 18, I see the difference here. I guess, is it because of an extra space that just occupied it? Could be the extra space or the enter that I pressed in. So what about this selection length? It says 12. Okay, that could be the issue, that there was an extra space given to that. Let's replace this thing. Press and send it. Yes. And we get the connection back. That's good. Okay, so that was an issue with an extra space. Now we have got the shell back. Let me make sure this is working good. And with the shell, let's see where are we. ls. We see gen.php, home.html, index.php, and sky.jpg file to be present there. What about if I go to the root of this? What all do I see? lsla. It has given me Docker and Docker environment file to be present. That okay. So which means that the access that we have got into the system is of a Docker environment and not the user itself. So meaning if I go to the home and list out the contents there is nothing there. We are inside the Docker environment. Now, because we are inside a Docker environment, I don't think so we would have much privileges to also be running and executing. For that reason, let's go back to the directory that we came from, which is var www and html. This is where we can look at things, and if we want, we can modify things here. First thing, let's look at what is the IP address of this Docker container. So for that, we can use hostname hyphen capital I, and we can see it's 172.18.0.3, meaning that this is part of that default subnet of Docker environments. It's a good thing. Now, assuming that 172.18.0.1 is the file or the actual server's IP address, we could try to look in to see what are all the contents present there. For that, we can use rustscan. Now, rustscan is something like nmap itself, but a lighter version of it, which could be used for basically on a environment where you have a very less space or less resources to use. So tools, and if I print out, I have rustscan here. So I will open up a Python 3 server.http.server on port 80. It's serving on port 80. Now, I don't know my IP address. So ifconfig. I have got my IP address. So run a Python server. Good. So copy the IP address and say curl or wget would be the good thing. So http, paste in the IP address, rust scan, and okay, wget is not there. So curl Again, HTTP, paste in the IP address and say rust scan, and I want the output to be as rust scan itself. Yes, it's downloading it. Okay, that's good. And we see the rust scan to be present there. So chmod plus x and make this an executable rust scan. Good. Now we can run rust scan on this target system there. So rust scan, we would get all the information here, but we have not passed in any IP addresses. So for the IP address, we can call it as rust scan hyphen top, which is going to just take for the top ports and top services that it could scan, just like how we have default 1000 ports in nmap. This is also going to use a top port as -a. Then I'll specify the IP address, which is 172.18.0.1 and 172.18.0.2. I just want to check for those two containers, and I don't need much things. So accessible, I just need what ports are visible. I just need those things to be presented out on the screen. Pressing enter, it starts its scan. Let's minimize this down here, and we can see on the host, which is the default target host, there is 5000 port to be enabled. Now 5000 could be used for a web application, but other ports could also be enabled for it. But interestingly, 5000 is present. Now port 80 is a web application. Port 80 for the second one is also for web application. This is for SSH, but 5000 is an interesting thing. So let's look at what exactly is happening in port 5000. So HTTP, let me also specify -s there. So -s HTTP, then it is 172.18.0.1 on port 5000. Pressing enter, we see website display. So body says fetch website contents currently in development, and it's going to use a method of post to take in any content which is being passed in the input box called as website URL. So it's basically going to take the contents of it and it's going to fetch and paste it in here. So it's going to paste in what contents are present inside the URL that we specify. For testing, what we can do is we can say curl s and -d for passing in the data, and call HTTP. Let's call our own system here, which is this IP address. So copy that, paste it in there, and see what exactly do we get. So let's also copy this, copy paste it there, press enter. It says bad request for what? Oh, sorry, we need to specify what we are doing with it, right? What parameter of data are we supposed to pass in? So we are supposed to say website underscore URL is equal to, and then pass in the URL there. Okay, then copy this, paste it there. That should do it. So it gives us a list of tools that normally, if I try to open this URL, or let's say I open on this page here, let's say localhost, I would get a list of all the tools present here. So it's trying to list out the contents that is present here. That's interesting. So meaning we could try to import anything from the system. Can we, let's try saying if we can get the etc pass wd file presented to us. We'll copy that, and since I can't modify the request there, I will kill this session and paste it in here. And instead of the it being our site, let's use file and call it /etc pass wd. Remove our IP address from here. and copy this file, or copy this payload, paste it up, and we get the etc pass wd file of the main target system, the one which is hosting all these containers. We see Han Solo, Han Solo. Okay, let's call him Han Solo. We get his username to be present there. Rest all looks like a default user present in a etc file. Okay, we get this user there. So can we also get what processes this user is running? For that, we could use the command of, let's say, yes, let's replace this to proc self and see what is being run in the command line. This basically is going to be used for looking at what processes are running in this command line. So I'll copy this payload and paste it in there and press enter. What do we see? The process that is being run on the command line by the user Han Solo is an app.py from the home directory of this user. What does this app.py file contain? I guess it's the same location or the same thing that we're seeing on the screen here of the port 5000. So let's check. So app.py, this is going to be a new payload. Copy this payload and paste it in here. It says internal error, home app.py. I guess the location was wrong. Yes, I forgot to add the username of it. Sorry. Let's copy that, come down. Let's add this home and give this. So let's copy this. This would be an issue if I miss the first bits. So going up, remove all these contents, paste this in. Now we get the contents there. So what exactly is this doing here? So we entered our command here and we get doc type HTML from div is what the content is being presented of app.py there. So from Flask, it's going to import Flask, then render template, and it's going to import all the modules which is required for running this and app Flask. Let's start from where this is the HTML part of the code. Okay, so the here it ends. So if main is present, so run on host is going to just set for all hosts, and coming up here it's going to be running app is equal to Flask and the name of it. It has two methods, get and post method. If post is there, it's going to take the URL from the person who is sending it. Website URL is the parameter for it, so it's going to buffer each bytes of it, and it's going to set it in the buffer variable, and it's going to uh, print out all the data which is present from that URL and the contents which is going to come from it. So this is the contents parameter of it. It's going to get all the values, then pass it on into the div here. So -s is being passed for all the strings of it. Okay, so it basically means that it's going to take the user's input and then try to take the contents what is present in that file where the user is going to point out. It's going to present it on our screen, which means that we could have a server-side template injection, SSTI. Now this SSTI, when we went on for a search on Flask Python SSTI, we found a good blog about it. Flask SSTI vulnerability. I don't see it here, but let's say SS or Flask, we would get it. A simple Flask by this one. So here they talk about all the examples and how it's being done, the history of it, and payloads. How are they building these payloads and contents? So we'll do something similar. They have given an example of TryHackMe. We'll do something similar with our custom payload written for this. For that purpose, what we will do is from the screen here. Let me adjust this properly. Let's kill everything. Control C there and go back to the TryHackMe folder where I had saved the payload there. We have something called as template. So printing out this template, what it does is it's going to try to get in all the other variables and it's going to import OS, which is the operating system packages, and through BusyBox, it's going to get us a bin bash shell into our system. That's the IP address that we have mentioned here. Is it the same IP address that I've been using since yesterday? Yes, it's the same IP address. Okay, so it's going to take in the attacker's IP address and run the bin bash shell back to us. So we'll be hosting this template such that it's going to download this, and when it reads the contents, it's going to read the command to be executing bin bash reverse shell to us. Let's host it here, sudo python 3-m http.server on port 80, where we have our template file, and modify this command. Let's open a parallel terminal here, and instead of app.py, let's call back our file itself. We'll do it saying http, then my IP address, which is 10.17.1.78, then specify template. That should do it. Let's copy this and paste it in here, pressing enter. Before we press enter, we need to set up a listener. So netcat-lvnp 11223 is my random port number that I've assigned. Pressing enter, do we get a callback? And yes, we get a callback to the system here. So it's nothing but running the command which is present here. It's going to run the self init globals, and it's going to import OS files to get us a reverse shell. So we are connected to the shell here. So ls, we see the first flag of this user. We can cat this file, which I would not do. I would just see the word count of Han Solo underscore user flag dot txt, and gives us the word count of this file. Okay, now this particular shell is not very suitable for me to work with. For that, we can run this another command, which I again have it in my notes, which is using Python 3 and putty. So Python 3 -c import pty and pty dot spawn slash bin bash, and close it with this. So this would spawn a bin bash shell. Now press Ctrl Z to exit from it so that it goes to the background. Then call it up by stty raw echo and fg. It's going to foreground it. So we get a good shell that we can interact and use. Let's say even the, what do I say, the autofill commands. So yeah, so we can use all these things here. So we get a connection back. Now what else can we do? We have owned this user because we have this flag called as Han Solo user flag.txt file, but we are not a root yet, right? So what permissions do we have as a sudo user? The sudo -l shows us that we have two permissions. One is, without a password, we can execute user bin bash. I mean, not the user bin bash, but we can execute bin vault file using the user bin bash. Okay, and the other thing which requires a sudo password but can be run as a root by running this app.py file. So we can only run the app generator app.py file, and the vault files, nothing else for us to deal with. So let's look at what exactly these things are. So copy this sudo, paste this command in there, or you know what, before that, let's go here, just cat out what contents are present inside the vault and understand what are we dealing here with. So it basically checks for, I'll give you a summary of what this file exactly does. There is two contents. One is it's going to check for the input that we'll be providing this vault, and if the password matches, it's going to give us, or it's going to print out the secrets that is present inside the root and secrets file. But for that, we need to write the right password which is present inside slash root and the password of it. So how do we do it? It's basically trying to take in the contents of the user. It's going to say read -s, enter required password input, and it's going to take our user input of it. Now, until unless we given the right password to it, it's not going to give us or spill us the secrets of it. So let's run this and look at the behavior of this. Now, there's also a vulnerability in this way of comparing the contents by reading the user input of it. Just by entering the star character, we can bypass the password that is being verified, because it's going to check if contents is equal to everything that it's trying to compare, and it's always going to be yes. So let's copy this and call it with sudo, run this vault, and says enter the required password input. Now if I say QWERTY for just an example and press enter, that it says password does not match. If I try to run the same command and give star and press enter, it's going to spill out all the secrets to us, which also means that we could try to guess what the password is. I mean, we are just getting the secrets here, but we don't know what exactly the password of this file is. Now, it's another challenge that we need to deal with. We don't know if that password is exactly going to be used for getting the root or anything like that. But we need to try to match the password. Running this command again, for the purpose, I will type in capital A and then press star and press enter. In this case, it says password did not match, which means we can use this vulnerability to try to get the password matched for every bit until unless we don't require it to be getting all these outputs from it. So till we get the output of it, it's going to keep running this thing till the password is completely generated. For that, I have written a simple Python code which I could kill this session and showcase it here. I could print out cat brute.py, and this Python file just does with a while loop that it's going to take in the characters from the strings, from all the basic alphabets to strings, and it's going to add in star at the end of it. Now, by reading by step, it's going to say final password is this by saying, and it's going to go into the loop. So while true, found is equal to false. For characters in char set is nothing but importing the ASCII characters and the digits. Then it's going to take in the star and print off the password every time it finds a password. For that, we are passing in the contents of sudo user bin bash into this. It's going to pipe it out and we'll get the password. Once, if it reaches a password matched, it's going to break the loop of it. If not, it's going to continue for all the characters of it. Okay, so I hope the logics are understood. Now what we'll do is let's import this file into our system here. Do we have the same curl command up somewhere? No. So let's use curl http, and for the IP address, let me copy this. Not paste in there, paste in here. Then call brute brut.py and save the output as brute.py itself. Pressing enter, we get the file here. So all that we have to do is say python 3 and brute.py, Press enter. That's going to try brute forcing all the passwords that it could get till it reaches to the point password matched. So we get the password here. Let's copy the password and save it somewhere safe. Yes, I've saved in that terminal there. That's good. Now with this password, maybe we could try to use user bin python app.py file. We are not sure what exactly that file does. So let's copy this and print out the contents of that app.py file. From this, we can see it's going to import random, which is the random module and the strings module. Then it's going to try length is equal to int. It's going to take an input, raw input from the user. Basically, it's going to take an input and convert it into a decimal character by saying int. And it says enter the desired length of password. So it's going to take the specified length of the password and what is it doing here? Just the length. This is accept. If that doesn't happen, it's going to take the thing. Expect value if there's an error. Okay, it's here. So password is equal to generate password. Then it's going to this function with the length which was specified there. Then it's going to take in the characters is equal to string.ascii is the same thing that we did there, which is to take the letters and the digits and strings dot punctuation. So it's also going to take punctuation marks to generate some passwords. Then random dot seed is going to generate a random secrets or random salts. Then secret is equal to input any word that you want to add to the password. So here it's going to take an input from the user, calling it as secrets, where it asks for the user if you want to provide any custom built what do I say, input or a word that you want to have in your password. Then it's going to talk about password characters is equal to list of characters plus the secrets, which is these characters and the secrets. Then it's going to do a random shuffle with the password characters in it. Then it's going to join all of them and return the password to us and says generated password and password length. So now let's try running this tool as it is. Let's copy this here. Let's copy and run that. But before that, we need to add a sudo. And hopefully this is the password of the sudo. So press enter. It's going to ask for the password. Paste it in there and it says sorry is not allowed to execute this on Python 2 or Python 2.7. Okay, we are supposed to either use one of these contents, which is not the star there, but Python 3. Let's do it in Python 3 and run this. So passing in the password once again. Enter the desired length of the password. Let's say 10. And let's also call it as hacker. It says it has generated this password. It has done some combinations and things like that. But interestingly, if you see here, it says user bin, we are either supposed to use Python 2 or 2.7 or Python 3 or Python 3.8 and all those information there. Now, yeah, you can go on doing on a research to actually confirm what I say. But in Python 2, if you are running the point here, this is the secret input, enter any words you want to add to the password. This is actually vulnerable because an input which is being considered in case of Python 3 is going to just take them as a string. But in case of Python 2, they're going to be taking input as a command which the user is going to be entering there. So because of that vulnerability, what we can do is when it comes to this point, we could write our own payload which would try to execute a command instead of running it as a string. We could break this out of this loop or this password generation by that. So we have a payload here. Let me copy the payload that I want to execute into my terminal here. It's a simple payload. Let's paste it in here. Let's remove all these braces or those codes. Yeah, so what we're doing is here, we are trying to break it out, passing it as a Python command saying that import OS then import bash into this. What will happen here is, since this is already running as a sudo user and running on the Python version 2, it's going to take this as a command as a higher privileged user, meaning it's running through the program. It's going to return us a bash shell. So sudo user pen Python, just autofill there. Okay, Python 2, and then we will specify opt generator app.py, paste it in there and press enter. It's going to ask for the password. It's going to ask for the enter the desired length of the password. We will call it to be 10. Then here, any words you want to add for the parameter, we would import this payload and paste it in there. And here you see we get the bash shell as the root user. So who am I will give us that we are the root. So we can go to slash root folder. It's okay. So cd slash root and ls. We see root.txt file to be present there. Word count of root.txt. Oh, I guess that is some issue with the terminal here. Okay, word count. Backspace works differently here. Okay, root.txt. Press enter. It's 25 characters long. Is your flag of the root user. So yes, and this is how you can solve this machine here to be the root of the machine. So yeah, my dear client who was in a huge trouble, this is the exact reason why you should be. There's just 13 minutes left. That's the reason why you should actually go for maintenance. Yeah, so that is it for this challenge here. We have solved it and got the root flag. Now you can, if you wish, you can make a big vulnerability analysis assessment report and give it to your client. If not, thank you for watching, and hope we'll tune in on next Friday, another challenge of TryHackMe or Hack the Box or any other good CTF that is going around. So meet you all on next Friday. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.